Thank you.
Hello and welcome to our third quarter of Discover Love Academy. I am Jacqueline Nichols, professional matchmaker and creator of Discover Love Matches. And because of all of my years working with singles, I love to bring in experts. And you've already probably had a chance to hear from this expert with our first and second quarter. So this is what is so exciting about our program, is that each quarter we get a chance to get to know more, learn more, and expand on the insight and knowledge for our growing, learning, exploring experience with love. So today we have our intuitive love coach, which is so exciting because you guys all know I'm all about intuitive support and guidance and extra perspective in the journey for all of our aspects of life. So LB, I would love for you to introduce yourself, let everybody know why you are part of our Discover Love Academy and a little bit about what you do.
Thank you, and hello and welcome everyone. I am here because I am very lucky that Jacqueline found me. I truly feel that. You know, you never know what's going to come across your email. And when the invitation came and I learned about Jacqueline, I thought, I get to be part of helping people. So that is very important and part of this group. So as Jacqueline said, my focus is on empowering and training your intuition, particularly when it comes to love, so that you can trust your judgment. And as I mentioned probably before on one of Jacqueline's conversations, is that the way this came to me, and you know, I don't know why I didn't think of this before, because sometimes the obvious things, you know, they go, woo. So I was on a radio show one time and someone asked me if you could give women, especially women, because it was a show for women, one tip, just one, that would help them make wise decisions in love. This is what came out of my mouth, and as I probably said before, it bypassed consciousness and just came out of my mouth. And I said, if women could trust that their love intuition is accurate, they would make wiser choices. They would get out of bad love relationships more quickly, because we all can be fooled. I'm certainly one who's been fooled. We all can, because some people are really good at hiding their problems and their real self. If women could do that, and if they could take the time to learn about their intuition and how to tease it out, then your listeners and viewers would be much happier.
I love that. And I think it is ever so important, because that's exactly where we don't understand a lot of times the power we have in how we communicate, what we open ourselves up to, and what's really possible. And so through your teaching, you're able to help people understand that there's actual tools to do this. So this is very possible, doable, and it actually happens for people. And then the shifts that follow pursuit of what you're doing is so huge.
Thank you for that, because it is so important. And I know that some people might be listening to this, watching it, and thinking, intuition, that's like kind of woo, you know, out there. So I just want to get just a couple of ideas across that are so important to set a foundation for this. Number one, we have very famous, serious researchers in this country and the world who are dealing with intuition. So the Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman, I hope I say his name right, discovered that intuition is a vital part of making informed decisions. Now, this is someone who's won a Nobel Prize. Also, we have very well-known researchers and authors who have worked in the field of the physicality of intuition. And we have John Cunius and Mark Beeman, who discovered through doing brainwave tests and hooking up participants with all those little, you know, things you see on them with the wires and the tabs and everything. And they discovered that when people make accurate, intuitive decisions, an area of the brain right above and slightly behind the right ear shows activation in the brain. Now, when I read that, I thought, that is really fascinating, amazing, because it kind of gives solid ground to the fact that intuition is real.
It does. And, you know, it's one thing for us to feel like, well, yeah, I know it, I understand it, I feel it, you know, we kind of want to own it. But to actually say, well, there's people that have won huge awards. I mean, Nobel Peace Prize on intuition is really a high level of validation that this actually could be something real. It makes such a difference.
And there's a research lab at Yale University. I mean, not, you know, wagon wheel in the mud university, but Yale University. And there is, John Barg is a professor of psychology, and his whole lab is devoted to cognition, including intuitive judgment. And I've always been interested in intuition. I've been intuitive since I was at least 4. That's my first memory of it. And I was raised, literally raised, by a woman who was very, very intuitive. Her name is Daisy. She's still alive. It's the only flower I like. And she really helped tease out my intuitive judgment and skills, even when I was as young as 4 years old. And as I got older and realized this was so important, I later got trained by a internationally known intuitive who is no longer alive, but her name is LeslieBeth Barron. And finally, just so your listeners know that and their viewers know that that you're in good hands, everything I say is based on years of solid research, not only of others, but my own. Because the usual question is, who am I to write or talk about this kind of stuff? And I have done good research design. I've been trained in it. I have a doctorate in developmental psychology. Very important that everyone who hears this and watches this understands that this has come from solid research design, tested tips. You know, I got rid of ones that I thought weren't going to work and didn't work. So everything that they will be learning today comes from other people. We're talking thousands of people, not 10 people, thousands of people in my workshops, lectures, surveys over many, many years. So I just hope that this helps people believe that there is some real solid grounding to this, and that they can trust that I'm someone who can help them understand it.
Exactly. And that's actually what's really important, because in all stages of love and vulnerability and meeting new people, it does come down to trust. It's a credibility, you know, somebody has a proven track record of knowledge, you've got research and a track record. And it's really important because in life, we often are so overwhelmed by making decisions, deciding who to listen to. Unfortunately, there's some really bad, lame advice out there. And a lot of times I'll have clients send me links and say, what do you think about this program? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just one giant sales pitch. These aren't necessarily people that are really talented. They might have some good tips here and there, but you got to weed through all of their mucky muck just trying to get a sale. When really what we want to be bringing, and why I've created this program, is for just some really good, hardcore, authentic, deep-rooted acknowledgement of knowledge. Like, this is the stuff. And so you are spot on what is so crucial to our listeners. That's why they're so excited to hear more and open to it. And then once we have that layer of trust, then we can hear the deeper point of really recognizing and acknowledging what's available for what we're supposed to get. Like, instead of just hoping we'll get it, instead we can go, okay, I think I can embrace this because there's more backing it.
I appreciate that. And I know by now your listeners and viewers are thinking, well, get on with this. But this is so important. I just want everyone to know that what you said about trusting someone, you know, when you go to see a physician, you want to make sure you trust this person. And so
exactly.
The only thing I will mention is my website is lovevictory.com, so they can learn to trust what I'm saying and learn about my advanced training, how I've applied my research. So we've cleared the air on that, so they can, you know, get rid of, well, who is this person? And intuition, is this going to be like, you know, woo-woo stuff? No, this is solid, grounded stuff. So we're talking about trusting your love intuition, and some of the things that women especially, men do too, because in many cases they're the other half of the relationship. So I'm wearing yellow today, as I mentioned to you before, just to remind people that this is like the color of caution. I'm pointing out things to be concerned about, because a lot of people say to themselves, particularly after their heart's been broken, they make what is the number one mistake that came from my research. And I didn't know this would be number one, but that's what emerged. After your heart's been broken, do you say to yourself, that's it, I am done with love, I'm down on trusting guys or women or other partners, I am done, no more. And the danger of that is you take yourself out of life. You take yourself out of getting practice in reading people and reading your own reactions. So that is the basic.
That's huge. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm wearing yellow. Don't do that, because what you want to do is avoid magical thinking and saying to yourself, I'm down on love, that's it, I thought this person was the one, and so I'm done. And if I go through life and luck happens, that's why I'm wearing my ladybugs. If luck happens, like little ladybugs come and say, I'm bringing you luck, that the universe will tilt towards me, the whole universe will tilt towards me, give me luck. And if love is meant to happen, it will just happen, and it will happen when you're not looking. And those are very silly, self-serving myths.
You know, it's exactly that. And we have to set up the spot. And I love it because you're always good with visuals. And we need those little images, those reminders. What are we attracting? And what are we making ourselves available for? But also, what are we just blocking so that we're immediately already pre-deciding this is so not going to work, when really it could work beautifully. We just need to give it a little bit of patience and listen to what we're supposed to be hearing.
So you picked up something very important. Let's answer, why do we do that? Because a lot of us have said, that's it, I'm done, I'm taking a break. You can't take a break from life. You can't take a break from people. And if you do, then you know, please don't make it very long, because this is how we learn. We learn about ourselves. So why do people do that after they've been hurt? And some of the answers that came from my research are the following, not in any particular order. I can't withstand being hurt again. That was near the top. I don't think I can handle it again.
Right.
That's a horrible thought. That means that you don't trust yourself. And so why don't you trust yourself to choose wisely? Because you don't trust your judgment, and you don't trust your instincts. You don't trust that you're not going to make another bad mistake.
That's a big one, because that's really what it comes down to, is as soon as it doesn't work, we actually think that we failed, so therefore we can't ever do it again, when really we did it. And there's a whole lot in there that we probably just didn't listen to, that suddenly comes more clear after the relationship doesn't work.
Absolutely. Hindsight is usually really good. Sometimes it isn't. It isn't always great. Sometimes we come up with a different analysis. So here are some key tips. We'll go through them about how to tease out your intuitive judgment, because we all have the ability to be intuitive. You just have to tease it out. It is there. The answer's in you. Remember, it's on that little right side of your brain. So how can we get the answers out? So let's start with changing the goal of dating. Most people say the goal of dating is to meet the one. Well, just think how silly that sounds. There's one person in the universe, one person for you, and you're going to find them, or they're going to find you. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And why fool yourself? So I would recommend that to help tease out your intuition, change your goal from finding the one to trusting your take on people.
I like that. Yes. I think that's the thing. I love that. So everybody, like, write that down. Trust your take on things. You know, like, let's learn to trust our own selves in order to move to the next phase.
So when you go on a date, don't think in terms of, am I going to fall in love with this person? Am I really attracted to this person? You know, so many times when you're fixed up, I was always fixed up. My mother was always fixing me up because she thought I was too serious to, you know, attract a guy. So I'd come home from college and there'd be a note pinned to my pillow. So-and-so's son is going to be calling you for a date. And I go, oh, good Lord. You know, but usually when people go on a blind date or matched up or they meet in a bar or classroom or work, they say to themselves, there's no chemistry. Forget that. Just put that aside for a while, because the goal is not to find chemistry or to fall in love or to come home and call your girlfriends or your buddies and say, I just met someone. You don't want to do that. Your goal is to go out and on a date or hang out in a group or whatever, wherever you meet people, and make a point to meet people. I'll get to that later. And go out and see what this person is like. Come home and think about the impressions, the feelings you had with them, and write down some predictions as to what you think this person is like. And go out on a second date. Or even a third date, unless the person's really horrible to you, and go to some safe place like your local lunch place or coffee place or brunch place. Please don't go out on those big hoo-ha dates, you know, where the evening gets later and later and closer to that decision. You're going back to my place, your place. That shouldn't even be on the list, okay? So try to make these dates or get-togethers resemble your real life. Where do you go? Where's your favorite coffee place, sandwich place, breakfast place, grab a snack place? Make it real, because as I might have said before, most of your time in a good relationship is going to be spent doing really ordinary things.
That is so true. Like, we think of all the woo-woo of every, like, hot and exciting relationship, and truthfully, it's just that. We're doing normal things, taking the dog for a walk, going to the grocery store, cleaning house, making dinner, you know, talking about day-to-day life. It's all that.
Right. So make it real. You know, yes, if someone calls you and says, I've got tickets to something, don't say no, but try to make the other times that you're together. And I do recommend you get together. I call it the baseball theory of life. You've got 3 strikes, right? So why not go for all 3? And why not meet with his or her friends, get together, you know, go out and get a pizza or wherever your favorite places are to hang out. You know, imagine that you're taking your best friend. You're not showpiecing. You don't need to go to the fanciest restaurant to find out what someone's like. And kind of get a tip from your friends. So those are the beginning steps to do.
That, I love that. And it's so important. And really, your friends show a lot about who you are, and so do, you know, his or her friends. And it's powerful because when you see how your friends interact, how your friends think about the person you're dating, how they give you some other perspective, they can give you, like, you know, this was a keeper, this is really good, or there was something kind of odd that you probably already intuitively were feeling, but you weren't really listening to. So, you know, real life, real world is really what you're looking for in the long run anyways.
Absolutely. And you reminded me of something. Make sure that when you hang out, you choose friends who cheer for you, not compete with you. Because I remember,
big one.
Oh, I mean, especially, it really is. You want someone who wants you to be happy, not someone who doesn't want you to be happy.
Right. That's actually super true. We just had an event as a matchmaker. We have little get-togethers, and one of the ladies came, and she had signed up for multiple events but never made them. And she's like, oh my gosh, my first social. And I was like, yeah, I've been trying to get you to show up. Clearly you want to. And she goes, honestly, she was scared that the women wouldn't want to talk to her, that it would be feeling catty, or that if she met someone, it would be awkward the next time. And everybody else there was like, oh no, this is actually just a bunch of like-minded people. We're here to support each other. And she was like, this has been amazing. I mean, she was so blown away, and she now can't wait to come back. But because of what we're so conditioned in other situations, we forget. And it is so true, because yeah, why would anybody want to come to a get together if they feel like the people there might not have their back? But when people do have their back, they can let their guard down. They can kind of be more authentically natural and allow that process. So that's huge. Wonderful topic to bring up.
Yes, get selective. You want people around you who cheer for you. Think of a waving hand as a pom-pom. You want someone who says, yes, thumbs up, I'm for you. I remember when I first started dating my husband, I had a few single girlfriends at the time, and they said to me, I don't know, LB. Everyone calls me LB, like Ladybug. I often wear ladybugs anyway, okay? So I said, I don't know, LB. You know, he's got a daughter from his first marriage. She's just a little girl. You're going to have that responsibility. I don't know, you know, and there's going to be an ex-spouse somewhere. And I remember thinking, that's life, you know, this sounds like a really good match for me. And because I discovered later that I couldn't have children, this was a bonus that I was able to be a parent. And then not very long into after we got married, she came to live with us full time. So I really got to be a mother.
Right. And you were able to see the bonus in it. Where the thing that I find so often is that when we seek advice from people that aren't in our winner circle, they're coming from their place. Like, they don't want to be with a previously married man, or they don't want to be with somebody who already has a kid. So they often give advice based on where they're coming from instead of what you need to be hearing for where you're coming from.
And I think when you have friends who are, I love that expression, in your winner circle. So when you do go out, now that's a great way to view it. When you go out with a group, you know, some of the things that my husband and I did together when we were dating, you know, when you've got a child, you've got to run errands, you've got to pick up this. So we would run errands together. I'm really serious. We got to chat in the car, let's sing along to songs, be silly. We were able to find out, was he cool in his jets when I said, can we run into Walgreens? There's something I need. Was that, and whether he was going to go, oh God. But you know, because that's what your life is going to be like, going to the grocery store, running errands, you know, cooking dinner, doing this, picking up dry cleaning. You better find out what your partner is going to be like for real. So this was a good training ground. But I found that when you do that, you become more intuitive because you've got much more valid and valuable information about them.
Right. It's so true. And then you're looking at them as a real potential partner, not necessarily saying immediately with your dating attitude as, are you my person right out the chute? But you're also saying, is this somebody I'd enjoy day to day with? Somebody who also, when you're not together, you still feel a connection, but they can have a life. You know, you're not so codependent, and that's what's really important. And that's where, you know, you've talked about like the cycle of dating the weak or the meek and getting in that vicious cycle. What do you feel like when you get in that situation where, like with your husband, you knew that you loved your day-to-day stuff, but, you know, what if you are dating somebody who just isn't really stepping up or isn't showing up and just has that, you know, as you kind of call it, is the love flip cycles. And it's that energy of just being with people that just aren't really giving you what you need in return, but they keep you busy.
Yeah. And it takes the mystery out of it. You get to see this person when their guard is dropped. And these are all ways to tease out your intuition, all your ability to read them. So what you want to do on these dates, in addition to, you know, go 3 times, hang out with friends, make the dates real, change your goal from the one to just learning to read people so you can trust your judgment, then I've already covered where to go on a date. Wherever you can go, make it as real as possible. You know, go to Starbucks or your local whatever, hang out. But now one of the questions is, two key questions, totally seemingly unrelated, but they're not unrelated. Who pays? Well, I really like the idea of letting the man or the person who's taking the lead pay. Why?
Mm-hmm.
You do not want to seem too eager, too controlling. You want to see if this person is willing to step up to the plate and go a little bit of the distance for you by paying for your meal, paying for your ticket. Yes, eventually as you begin to date, you take turns. Let me treat you. But in the beginning, let the person pay.
Right. The person who's courting you, who's asked you out, and also receiving that. We actually just had this topic. I was helping another love expert work on a class that she was doing, and the men were asking, and it is a fine line, but there is that level of men want a lady to offer, but ladies want a man to say, no, thank you, but thanks anyways. And the thing is it's expensive to date. So just get a Starbucks, just get a little something. Don't go and eat this big lavish meal and then put all this burden on the person courting you. So they can actually show that they're very generous, but not going, oh my God, I couldn't afford to go on another date with that person because they're expensive. So it doesn't make a big difference.
And you want to see the care. By the third date, you can say, let me treat you to an ice cream cone or a whatever, something, let's go here, my treat. But wait. And that has a lot to do with anxiety. So if you are willing to not step into that vacuum and say, don't worry, I'll pay, you are saying in essence, I'm not worth it. And I'm afraid that you might not treat me, so I'm going to rush in to fill the gap. Women do this all the time. We have been, our brains are more oriented towards relationships for good reason. It's survival and biology that women need to be more attuned to their newborns. But it backfires when we get so attuned to people that we end up harming ourselves, stepping in and allowing ourselves to be stepped on. So let the person pay. You are worth it. You're worth the time. Don't get appreciative. Yes, but then don't get appreciative by having sex so soon.
Right. I like that. Don't be so appreciative that you have sex too soon, which is often the case that people kind of feel like, well, he bought dinner, so now I should have sex with him. And that's not really the exchange rate. So what do you suggest on helping people to see when's the right time to be sexually intimate?
Well, let's put it this way. In the beginning stage of dating, do not put yourself in compromising positions. Your intuitive judgment tells you, I'm not going back to their place and they're not coming back to my place, okay? Don't put yourself in jeopardy. Don't second guess that. Say, no, 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 no. Think of these caution colors. You can always have sex, but it's really hard to dial back once sex has happened soon.
That's the truth. You go too faster. And especially if you don't know each other well enough, you can't say what's important. You can't speak up. You can't be as vulnerable. And then it's just a moment. It's not building a connection and building a foundation for the two of you.
Yes. And let's look at it this way. What's happening in this culture is that it has become more frightening to be known than to take your clothes off and have sex. It's backwards.
That's actually very true. I hadn't thought about that, but you are spot on because we have such a superficial society, and it's really easy to have quick sex with somebody and then they don't even know who you are. They don't know your story. They don't know what's important to you. So that's a big thing. I'm like, listeners, you're going to need to write that down. So that was really, really poignant comment you just made, LB. I really, really appreciate that.
Well, what happened was, talk about flip cycles. Let's go back to the 50s where there was hardly any birth control, something not very reliable. People used condoms and they had diaphragms, but we know that there were some condom, a diaphragm babies born, okay, and that they weren't very reliable, and women, especially, you had to go to a gynecologist, you had to go, they didn't know too much about it because very little was ever talked about sex. So it was skewed in the other direction of this sort of, black shade that, you didn't talk about it, you didn't know about it, you fumbled with it, stumbled with it. I mean, just didn't know. And then slowly, as the decades went on and the pill got developed, and then the women's movement and abortion, I'm just being factual, I'm not passing any judgment one way or the other. It slowly moved in the direction of, I can do whatever I want, I'm empowered, it's my body, I can do what I want. But it's not your body, your head's attached to your body, your soul, everything's in there. You can't just cut yourself off and go, I'm going to go have sex with this hot dude and I'm not going to worry about how I feel. I probably have counseled maybe 12,000 people. I've never had a woman say to me after they had sex too soon, they never said, oh, I didn't care if he never called. I've never heard that. They all say,
well, part of you are right.
Right? So don't do that. Take charge of your life. And one way you do that is to stay in your good senses. I might have said this before, but when you are sexually aroused, when you have sex, your brain gets hijacked by hormones. It gets flooded with pleasure hormones.
So true. Absolutely.
And so it's sort of like being high and intoxicated. And that's not a mental brain state to make wise decisions.
Right. Well, and that's exactly right, is that people tend to get into the space of, they just want to prove it worked or have this happen. And, when it's a real connection, it's actually not just about having intercourse. It's about connecting. It's about relating. It's on so many more levels, so you know when to speak up or when it's just time to cuddle and just connect. But if you're jumping the gun and you're trying to create too much too fast, you don't even really know which end is up, but then you kind of feel awkwardly like, am I connected? Do I want him to call? Do I not? You're not really making the right decision. So that's so true that, hey, hold on, the brain just got hijacked.
And it's so sad that we fool ourselves into having sex very soon or some kind of sexual, activity. And we think that that's okay. But what you're really doing is hijacking your intuition, because you already know that you're not being known or loved for who you are with someone you've never let down your guard for. You've never told them your story. You never have a sense that they get you, that you're well matched. So that's one of the other things I recommend you do on the beginning dates. Do not put your best foot forward. Put your real foot forward. Be you.
Okay? Yes. Uh-huh. I like that. Put your real foot, not your best foot, because you know what? Sometimes we're going to have our off day and our moments. But the sooner you get to realness, the more that person's actually going to be really attracted to you, or so not interested and leave. But there's less wishy-washy and there's less confusion. I always feel like people that are more authentic from the get-go, regardless of where the relationship goes, they have less regret because they're not going, oh, but I never really told them this part of me, or I never really showed this side of me. That's huge.
So here are some questions eventually that you should know about your partner or potential partner and what they should know about you. It's not a complete list, but these are the ones that came from my study as to the questions that the women in my study said were most helpful to know. So one of them was to ask your date at some point, when you're walking around casually, go to a park. You don't even have to spend very much money. Go have a snowball fight if you live in the winter places. Go kayaking or walking or whatever is, a good place to have a safe but fun place to be with your partner, with wherever you live. So these are some of the questions you can be talking about as you're walking. What are the top things you learned from your past dates and relationships about what you need to work on?
Those are big. That's really, really big. That's a big question to ask.
What have you learned that you'd like to not have or avoid in your next new partner? What things did you find out you need that your previous partners weren't giving to you? What do you need?
That's a huge question, really, because so many people have turned it off. And I kind of refer for a lot of men. I feel like so many men have had that newspaper wrapped up and just been smacked. That there's a lot of strong women that have taken the man's voice away, and then when they get into a new relationship, they're just not even sure what they're allowed to say or do, because they've given that up so strongly that it makes it harder to even release and let go and make room for somebody. And women have to do the exact same thing. Have you been shushed through it? Have you been denied to have your voice? What is really important? So that you allow the new person to get the real version of you, not the version that somebody else, put into your mind for so many years previously.
Definitely. And you want to know, just like you want to learn about yourself, you want to be able to say, this is what I learned from my previous relationships. I do not want fill in the blank. I am not the kind of person who, I need this. And so that's what you want to communicate to your potential partner, and what you want your partner to communicate with you. Very, very important. And the other thing you can do to tease out, these are what I call teasing out your intuition. Ask your potential partner, walk me through a movie of what a typical week in your life would be like. So you wake up in the morning. Are all your clothes on the floor? Are all the drawers open? Is there a half-eaten donut by your nightstand? I mean, make it real. Tell the story. Are you going to sleep with your clothes on? You're going to sleep with, what? Just be real, okay? TV on.
Or fall asleep on the couch all the time.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, okay? And walk me through it. You get up and you go down, you get breakfast. What is breakfast like? Is your place a wreck? Are there tons of dirty dishes in the sink? Are you rummaging through the laundry to find a pair of socks to wear because you haven't done laundry? This is what you want to get a story. You want to literally run that movie so you can see frame by frame by frame. So you get a feel for what their place is like. What is it? What's their life like? Do you just grope in your closet in the dark and go, well, I'll just wear the same clothes I had on yesterday? This is what you want to know. Or the other hand, do you spend your time organizing the napkins, the drawers? What are your drawers like? Or when you open them, all the spoons are nicely fit? You want to get a feel for what this person's like to be with, because some people are so hard to live with.
That's true. And there's a reason that they're really hard to live with. So it is actually really important. And there's also some people that are not meant to live with anybody.
Right.
They're great to come for dating visits. So yes, exactly.
So now we're getting into that territory of love flips, because we're looking at extremes. At one end might be a neat Nick who's got to have, obsessive compulsive, all the magazine stacks in order by date. Some people, I've had clients who had them by date. And the other extreme of, I don't even know where my shoes are. What do I do with my shoes? Where's my keys? Where's my wallet? What day is this? So again, you don't want to overcorrect. That is a key intuitive tool. Am I overcorrecting? Have I been dating or fell in love or had a previous relationship with someone who took charge too much, and I let them do it because they were so famous and wealthy and rich and successful, and I figured, woo! And so what happens is, when you realize that, there's nothing wrong with successful people. I don't get that wrong. I'm very attracted to successful people. My husband's very successful, but he wasn't controlling. You see, you have to distinguish between someone who is an authority in their life and a sense of being able to take charge of their own life versus taking charge of you. Very easy to confuse. So what often happens, again, the extremes, too neat, too messy, very take charge, took charge of you, strangled you, you felt like you had no voice. And what often happens in these patterns, so now you're even getting deeper in your intuitive judgment, have I overcorrected and chosen someone who is so meek? I went from meek to meek. I don't want no more guys or any more partners telling me what to do. I'm going to get someone who's going to let me run the show. And these are extremes. And that is not a safe place to be. Why? Because it has no flexibility. Life has curveballs everywhere. What your listeners and viewers may not know is that this wonderful daughter who I have helped raise, she developed an autoimmune disease. So we had to deal with this, okay? That's a curveball. So if my husband was not reliable and take charge and could be, and if I were not reliable and could take charge, that doesn't mean all the time, but that's where you want your flexibility. Who can take charge? Who can command certain things? That's what you're looking for, because ultimately you want your partner to be your wing person, so you can look right and left and say, I trust you to take the wheel here. Maybe not all the time. Sometimes you want a partnership.
And really that honoring and respecting, but knowing, you know, that whole pendulum shifting. I feel like people do hit that extreme, and then they're like, ooh, but you know, there's a reason I kind of like this over here. And so it is so much about finding what's that happy balance, that in the middle, that part that really gives the best example for you.
You know, life comes at you in all kinds of different ways. So you want someone who's got that flexibility. And so when you're on your dates, here's another way to tease out your intuition. When you go home at night, I love journaling or calling your best friend and talking, because it teases out what's in you that you don't know is in you. But I want you to think in terms of those extremes. Was there a time on the date or a time together when I felt this person was just had that too muchness factor? All they did was talk about themselves, brag, talk about, you know, what they did at work, how much money they make, had an order for me to show off what they know about wine and food and the best restaurant, and they know the maitre d', and you know, there's somebody, and too much. Or the too muchness comes in the form of, I could fall in love with you. Oh, you're just exactly what I'm looking for. Oh my God, I can't wait to tell my brother, my sister, my mother. You know, what? You know, it's like way too much at first. So you're looking at that too muchness factor. Also, check your own too muchness factor. If you are so excited about this date, that is a cautionary warning sign, because the too much excitement could be filling a gap of an empty bucket in you. Oh my God, this person's going to give me a life. This person's going to give me a condo and the penthouse. This person's going to sweep me away. We're going to go on vacations all the time. That too muchness factor comes from desperation, being hurt, too needy.
True. Right. I am such a believer in that. And even just that expectation, the other person's got this big job. We were just talking at an event, and the men were saying how they feel like they have to entertain the lady they're on a date with. And, you know, they talk about all this comedy, and they're always making all these jokes and stuff. And I stepped back and I said, you know, actually, when you're making so many jokes, it's actually a forefront of you really not being secure enough, and that you're trying to distract, trying to keep the person busy, but you're taking too much responsibility to run the whole date, where you're no longer actually on a chance of discovery, you're on a presentation. And they were like, oh, you really shook them up to stop and really think, how is that impacting what you're doing? You're spending too much time trying to be the entertainer, and you can't sustain that in a long-term relationship. You can show some funny sides, but if you're showing it in a dominating aspect that you feel responsible to run the whole energy of the evening, then it's a one-sided courtship.
And it's very distancing for someone to be on all the time, and you're just supposed to be, what, a fan? You know, for a groupie, you know? I mean, that's horrible.
Exactly.
So I love that you brought that up. So let's go back to that teasing out your intuition, that too muchness factor. But now let's go the other way, the too littleness factor. Look for that too. When you come home at the end of your evening and you write in your journal or call your best friend, how much did you learn about this person? Did they speak up? When you said, where would you like to go now? And they say, oh, I don't know, anywhere you want to go. Too agreeable. And if you came off of one of those relationships that where someone was, looking for a fan club, it might feel very refreshing at first. Oh my gosh, they're so sweet. But what I want you to do, this is another way to tease out your intuition. I want you to exaggerate the behavior that you've seen on those first 3 dates. Exaggerate.
Oh.
Just imagine, stretch it out. Did this person ever speak up? Did they ever attempt to hold my hand at all when we began to make a connection? Did they, when we went to the restaurant, said, I don't know what I want. You might want to split a pizza? I don't know. Or they didn't talk a lot in groups. They just kind of went, they were the second speaker. Yeah, I like that movie too. They never initiated. So now exaggerate that. Imagine you're on your dates and they never state a preference, ever.
Yeah, that's huge. I like your comment of saying that they're the second speaker. And that's really big because sometimes people on a date, they're such a dominant personality and the other one doesn't speak, or they've really lost their voice and they don't speak because they don't know how to have an opinion. And that's important. You have somebody who actually goes, no, I don't like this restaurant, or right. I don't like those items, or you know what, can we get this, or can we try that, or let's compromise, because it all comes down to communication. And right. It's so powerful when we let it actually happen and be experienced.
And again, exaggerate the other end where someone's always in charge and you're sitting there ordering something on the menu that you don't like because, whoa, I really nabbed this amazing person. Just think of the life I could have with them. So when you start doing that, when you start projecting into the future so early in a date, that is a warning sign, an intuitive love warning sign. Save me,
Listen.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to be saved. You need to develop a life through someone else. Watch that excitement level. Very, very important. So these are all ways to help tease out your intuitive judgment.
Right.
And one of my fun ways, particularly if you want to get started doing this, when you get home, again, write in your journal. I'm a big fan of journals or calling your best friend. I want you to think about what animal came to mind when I met this person and spent time with them. I love you. Are they a fox? Are they kind of cagey? Are they, a lazy cat? What animal came to mind? Not just their appearance, but everything about them. That's why I love dogs, because they come in so many different breeds. Was this guy a yapping poodle? Yap, 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 barking all the time, or a
right.
terrier, couldn't shut him up, or is this person, what is that, a basset hound, the one that lies down with the ears all like this on the, kind of just waiting for you to kind of bring them some food, So these are all tricks of the trade that are tested that really help you see this person.
That's true. And they're really powerful because we do need to stop and think. It's too often, you brought this up a bunch on our talk today, and this really resonates, is where too often people date someone with how that person can solve their life issues or obstacles, and they're not dating them for who they really are, because they could have money today and not tomorrow, or they could have money and they're really controlling. You already know how to take care of yourself right now. What matters is, how do you feel when you're with this person, and how do you feel even when you're not with them? And I love your phrase of teasing out the intuition. And this is the part that I feel so strongly that people are missing, is they're too caught up in the idea of somebody and not necessarily, is this your person to be with in all these deeper senses? And you've just brought up so many great topics on this. I love it.
Make sure that you have yeses and nos in your head. Like, for example, I'm a terrible date. I'm allergic to all kinds of food. So when someone would say in a date, we want to go to Le Français, I go, we can't go to Le Français because I can't eat cream, dairy, eggs. Sorry, that kind of food's not going to work for me. But I know so many of my clients go, well, it's a really fancy restaurant, and he's like the president of the company, and he asked me out, and no.
Yeah.
Again, that goes back to put your real foot forward.
Right. Yes. And it's unfair to the other person, because here's this person thinking that you are going to just do all these things that they set up. And initially, maybe a controlling person kind of likes that, but it actually becomes unattractive. And in all my years as a matchmaker, people like dating somebody with a voice, with an opinion, with a conscious mind. And it doesn't mean you have to always agree. And yeah, maybe you might go to a restaurant, you look ahead and you might pick out the salad or something and just say, I can find something. We can find something in almost any restaurant to eat.
Right.
But knowing that it's not about this lavish meal, it's more of, okay, if you want to go there, but I have reasons I can't eat there. But it's also communicating that so that you have the information that the other person has tools to supportively make the best decision in making suggestions for what to do. It's all about the other person actually knowing what you need to tell them so they can be a great date to go out with.
And that's so true, because if you hide your real self, portions of your real self, and you put only your best foot forward, then you don't get to test how that person handles that aspect about you. So
Right.
I've had dates roll their eyes and go, oh, it's my favorite restaurant. And I go, well, I'm sorry, I can't go to your favorite restaurant. And it gives you an instant way to get some feedback about this person. And that is another way of grounding your intuition so that you can get real information about your date.
I just love that. I love how you brought all these really important topics together. You see me all squirmy when I'm talking about it, because I'm all like, yes. Because people really need to understand that there's so much more than that immediate. But if they go in with this, are you my person? Are you not my person? It's like you're not really looking at, can I enjoy getting to know you? Can I discover you? Because so many of my clients over the years, there wasn't fireworks on the first couple of days, but there was something about them that drew them back. But the older we get, the bigger the walls we have, the bigger the caution signs that we carry, the bigger the lack of trust, the kind of, whoa, we're not too sure, should we go there? That we need to let the other person be around us long enough, for one, for us to put our walls down and be vulnerable, but also for them to have a chance to, because of their history. So you're teasing out the intuition. I just love that phrase. You've just brought in such important topics that our listeners need. And I know everybody listening right now is like, ooh, how many times have I gone on a date just because it sounded like a really good date, but I really didn't want to go out with that person?
And so here's the last tip, and this is the weightiest one. These were all kind of easy to do relatively, but this one is the real weight. So the question is often, I'm looking for chemistry. I've seen that so many times. There was a time when I would use tapes of The Bachelor to teach clients what not to do on a date, what not to think, how to not act, how to act. But why wait for chemistry? Let me explain what good chemistry is. You both get each other. You value each other and have the same values, life values, same kinds of goals that work together. You have complementary styles so that when you come together as a unit, you're very rich. If you're both with strong skills in the same area, then you often can get tilted. One of the things that came out of long-term research on marital happiness is that couples reported they had complementary skills. That doesn't necessarily mean opposites attract. That's not really what we're saying. Because extroverts can be with extroverts. It's what kinds of life skills and problem-solving skills do you bring? So that my husband and I have opposite personalities, in the sense that's a terrible word, opposite skills, and we help each other. Believe it or not, I'm basically an introvert. I could stay home all day, write and research, and my husband's more extroverted. You wouldn't know it. You'd think he's also a psychologist and a businessman, but we bring each other out and we bring each other in. He's a good problem solver in this department. I'm a good problem solver in this department. And we've taught each other over the years. So what you want to do is think about this potential partner as a member of your crew. Imagine that your family and that the relationship you're going to be creating with this potential person is sort of like a floating ship. So imagine how awful a ship would be if everyone were the cook, or if everyone were the captain, or everyone was the maid, the steward who came to clean your room. So I want you to think about, what do we each contribute here to make this ship of our relationship stay afloat? Do we both have complementary skills? And that would be a better way of evaluating than saying chemistry, ding, 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 ding. Forget chemistry. And I'm so glad you said that, because that's what gets people into trouble. Put that chemistry away.
Both ways. They miss out on being with somebody who's a really great connection because they're so waiting for that chemistry moment. And then there's something deeper when you let the layers build up to get to where suddenly you're like, oh, yeah, we do have chemistry, but we did it in a foundation way at the right stages.
And the problem with chemistry is that it's potentially dangerous. There's that caution sign again. Sometimes you can have chemistry for someone who isn't good for you, or for someone who fits into that same pattern that you've been in. Or that this is the person you've overcorrected with now and it feels right. Chemistry can fool you. It is a trickster. So put it aside for a while. You know, my husband, I got hired by my husband's institute to be one of the staff therapists and then later the clinical director. And I knew my husband, well, he wasn't my husband at the time, but I knew him for a year. And we had to meet all the time because we had to talk about clients, I was in charge of hiring and firing, about the therapists and public relations, getting articles. So we spent a lot of time together. And over time, I got to know him. Now, he felt instantly for me, but I didn't see him as anything but my, who was the founder and the director. But one day, I don't know if I said this in the other one, so I might be repeating myself to your viewers and listeners. But one day, after we had spent a lot of time together, strictly as friend colleagues, I remember, like in the movies, a lightning bolt goes, the comics, a lightning bolt went, oh my God, this is the person for me. And it took, and the reason it took so long was that I loved my job. I was living in a very expensive city. It paid very well. I did not want to mess up this job with a love life attached to it. Did not want to.
Exactly.
Didn't want to go there.
I love it.
So chemistry can take time.
Yeah. And look, it's obviously lost. You guys have been together for a really long time. And understanding that both people, the chemistry comes in different stages, different timing, and it is learning to be vulnerable, learning to let go of certain things, making room for other things, and it is teasing your intuition. You've covered so many good topics. We actually are just like out of time almost. So what are the last pieces and nuggets you want to give to our group? We have covered so much, but I know you've always got that last little bit to give us.
You want to have hot sex, really greatest sex you ever had, just about? Make sure that you've done all these things, that you know this person, her quirks, they know you, you feel that you get each other, you've taken time to be real with them. And I don't mean 3 dates. Give it time. There was a study a while ago that said you need to spend about 100 hours with someone before you really sense that there's good ground here for falling in love. So,
I like that. Big one, guys. Now mark that down to go check your calendar and see how many hours.
And the last intuitive tease, the last teasing out of your intuition for love is ask yourself, would this person fit in my family of origin? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Would this
Right.
person not fit in my family? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? So that is a way to help you look at, that starts you thinking, well, my family is like this, and, I didn't really like it, and this person wouldn't fit, and that's a good thing. So those are other ways to tease out your intuition.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. LB, you've just covered the topics. You've opened our eyes, you've opened our hearts, you've opened our thought process in ways that we really need. As I have all of these clients all over the place, and I've matched and worked with so many people, it's those little moments where you go, okay, hold on. If I just did this just a little bit differently, I could get some different results. And you have brought to light so many ways that everybody listening is going to hit replay to redo this again, to just go, okay, you know what? I have actually not been doing that, or I need to work on that. It's not just, hey, they're hot. I mean, chemistry, we can have that with the first moment and spark with somebody, but that doesn't mean that they're actually relationship-based. Do you have anything in common that you could actually be a couple someday? It's so much that we are missing that we're denying the other person too. So teasing at your intuition is really, really powerful. I thank you for everything you share with our group.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I've given doable tips as opposed to just talking theory and stuff like that. Very important. And I want to leave one last underlying thought. Chemistry can fool you. It is a trickster, and it could leave you repeating your same faulty patterns.
Right. Oh, you're so right. It's so true. And it is truthfully, in all my years of working with people, those that took the time to really let the relationship unfold are the ones that are most often still together, and they really had a different way of going about the long term by how they started the beginning. So you've done great. I so appreciate you, and I look forward to what you have to share next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I say thank you for all the bravery that any of your listeners who've listened to this, because it takes a lot of emotional bravery to tease out your intuition and follow it.
You are so right, and it is exactly correct. I applaud everybody that shows up in whatever form they need to and is willing to actually take the next step. So thank you from all of us listening to you today.